Hello, and welcome back to episode 6 of Not My Podcast, Our Podcast. My name's Francisco, and I'm glad you guys can be back with us today for this episode. So, we just got done with finals week. Well, I don't know who's in school and who's listening to this, but out here, at least at our school, we just got done with finals. I just got done with mine yesterday. Not too bad, kind of a hectic time. I had a couple of projects for a couple classes I needed to do that obviously I just waited until the last minute to kind of get started on them. But wasn't too bad. One of them I got to do on baseball, so that was pretty cool. I did a prediction model on Hall of Fame voting, since that's like the only baseball news that's going around right now because of the lockout. So I decided to do mine on Hall of Fame voting and kind of trying to predict which players would kind of get voted in this year and stuff. And model didn't do that great. Well, I guess predicting for this year, I won't know at this point whether how good or bad it did. But overall, through like all of the rest of the history of the predictions I've done, didn't do that great. But I had to give a presentation on it, and I did a great job on this presentation. Everyone was completely enthralled with it. It was fantastic. Granted, there was like 5 people in the class, but hey, what do you do? But yeah, finals week for me is over. Semester's done. Was a pretty good semester of school. A couple of my classes were real boring, but it's nice to have those things. Especially, I took most of these classes to put on my job resume, and it's nice to kind of have this backing of like, hey, I know how to do this skill now because I've taken this class on it. So that's nice to be able to have. But I hope everyone else had a good finals week. If you're not in school anymore, I hope you just had a good couple weeks. It's been 2 weeks now since we've had our last podcast. But yeah, this is Christmas week that's releasing it. So I hope everyone has a great week this week. Hopefully, everyone gets to have a good time with their family. I am planning on going back home. As of recording this, I'm planning on going home tomorrow. But I guess that all just depends on how long it takes me to record this podcast and how long it takes me to edit it today. So, my family wants me to go watch the new Spider-Man movie with them tomorrow morning. Well, I guess tomorrow afternoon. But that means I have to wake up at like 6 in the morning and leave at 7 when it's going to be 12 degrees outside and I'm going to be freezing cold. So we'll see if that happens. But yeah, hopefully everyone does have a good week. Before we get further into the podcast, I did want to say this too. Because of Christmas and the holidays and all of this, New Year's, blah, blah, blah. The next episode is supposed to be released on January 3rd. That's not going to happen. I'm most likely not going to have enough time during this whole entire break to be able to record a podcast episode because I won't be out here to be able to record. So the next episode is most likely going to be January 10th. So we're taking a week off. So like imagine like this Christmas week just doesn't count as a week. And then the next 2 weeks are really just the 2 weeks in between, if you want to think about that. But yeah, January 10th is going to be our next episode, episode 7. We'll see if we'll have a guest on that one for now. I'm not exactly sure which topic I'm going to be covering that time. I have a couple ideas, but haven't kind of nailed something down yet. If it's just me, I have a couple topics that I could just do, or if someone else comes on the podcast, it's going to have to depend on who's on and what do they want to talk about. All right. We are back now for the second week in a row of the new segment that I'm calling Fresh Takes with Francisco. So if anyone didn't watch the last episode, the gist of this segment is I have a book. It's called The Book of Questions. I am going to randomly choose a question from this book. Well, I guess Siri's going to randomly choose a question. I've not seen any of these questions, and I'm just going to give my take on it. So the last week we had, Siri chose question number 48. And so if you weren't listening, that one was, would you rather have a successful professional life, but a tolerable private life versus having a great professional life, but an uninspiring professional life? Wait, a great private life, but an uninspiring professional. I don't think I said that right the first time. I did have 3 people respond to me with answers to this question. So if you didn't listen, I ended up choosing I would rather have a great private life, but an uninspiring professional life because essentially my gist was I don't think you should be totally defined on your professional life. You're more than just your job. I had 2 people agree with me on that one, 2 of the 3. Both Allison and Court agreed with me, and Court, I feel like, had a great explanation for why he agreed. Court said he chose the great private life and the uninspiring professional life because that's essentially where I am right now, and I'm pretty happy. So I thought that was a great answer to this question of like, hey, that's kind of where I am. So you know what? I like my life. I'll choose that one. The one person I did have disagree with me, he was kind of on the fence about it, but I really kind of pushed him. I was like, "Nah, you got to choose a side." Was Miles, who chose the successful professional life, but the tolerable private life. But yeah, that was our question last week. Wanted to give you the quick update on what everyone else thought. Let's see what Siri is going to choose today. Hey Siri, choose a number between 1 and 288.
A random number between 1 and 288 is 183.
183. Okay, hopefully that caught. Siri was talking a little quiet that time. I might have to boost that. But let's look. Question number 183 says, someone close to you will die in a few months unless you donate one of your kidneys to them. If you knew that your chances of surviving the operation were excellent and that life expectancy wouldn't be appreciably reduced, would you give up the organ? What if the operation were risky? There's a little follow-up that it says, what if you could refuse without anyone knowing, or if the person failed or if the person with the failing kidney didn't want you to make the sacrifice? I don't feel like this is that tough of a question for me personally. If I knew that I could give up one of my kidneys for someone that's close to me that could help them live and I was like the only one that can do it, of course I would. There's no way I wouldn't. Especially if it's just something for a kidney. I am not no medical expert, but I'm going to assume a kidney transplant from the person who is giving up the kidney probably doesn't have that high of a risk, which is why they said like your chances of surviving the operation were excellent. I don't think I would have basically no problem with this. Yeah, I kind of feel like I get this thing from my grandma, which my grandma would is willing to like help anyone, even if it's like a detriment to her type of thing. And I feel like I kind of get that from her and kind of my dad too. I don't think this is a tough question really at all. The more interesting one I have, what if the operation were risky? That is one where it would get tricky for me. Because at the end of the day, I am willing to help someone, I'm willing to help people. I don't know how much I'm willing to risk my own health to help someone else. The list of people that I would do that for would definitely get smaller the riskier it was. Ooh, I don't know. See, now I'm sitting here thinking, I was like, well, if it's really that risky, I don't know. I would definitely have a tougher time of doing it. I would want to say that I would still do it, but I can't say that for sure. I don't know. I've never been put in a situation like this. I'd want to say I feel like I'm a nice enough person that I would still be willing to risk it to help someone, but who really knows at that point? You know what? I don't like this middle answer. I'd probably say no. If I'm gonna lean towards it, if I'm gonna have to choose a side, I'm much more hesitant to risk myself. If I have to choose a side, I'd probably say no if there's any not any slight risk, because I guess there would be a kind of risk even for like a kidney transplant or something. For any significant risk, I don't know how to really define it. Because to me, it's like, well, if I have a 5% chance of dying for doing something like this, that seems pretty significant to me. A 1% still seems kind of significant. A 1 in 100 chance of dying during risking it for someone is pretty high. I don't know where that line is, but most likely, actually, not even most likely, that line is somewhere. I don't know exactly where that line is, but there is a point where I would go from yes to no. I am not sure where that line is. I'm not sure anyone can really define, like, a probability line that once you cross that, you're like, "No, I'm not willing to risk that." I'm interested to hear what other people have to say about this. With my personality, the base question, that's not really tough for me, kind of at all, but I'm interested to see what other people have to say about this. If you are one of the people who wouldn't do that, I also wanna know if you don't wanna out yourself as one of the people who would say, "No, I wouldn't, like, give up my kidney for someone close." When you tell me your answer, let me know. I'm not gonna go and out you on this podcast to the, like, 50 people that listen to this, so but yeah, I am interested to know what you guys would do in that situation. Alright, now on to the topic of the episode. So, I think I'm gonna title this episode "Make Goals, Not Resolutions." I don't know how much I like that title, but I feel like it kind of gets at the point that I'm gonna try to make through this. So obviously this could be the last episode of the year. And something that most people do for New Year's is they like making New Year's resolutions. And I don't really like New Year's resolutions. I think it has a bad connotation. I think most people, when they look at resolutions or they think about resolutions, they think about it as like really far shot things. Like they're like, oh, I want to do X, I want to do Y, I want to do Z. But there's nothing kind of backing it, if that kind of makes sense for right now. Probably doesn't. I feel like New Year's resolutions, a problem that they have is that when people are making them, they make them too stereotypical. And what I mean by that is like a lot of people will go like, "Oh, one of my New Year's resolutions is I want to lose weight or I want to work out more or I want to do this or that." And it's something that's like, yeah, you probably do want to do that, but do you really want to do this? Do you actually care about this enough to put in the effort to continually do this throughout the year? And I think for most people when they think about resolutions, the answer is no. I don't know, like, for a fact, but I'd say most people's resolutions are kind of thrown out the window by, like, February. It's like people might try it for a bit, but that first moment of, like, pushback, people kind of give up on it because they probably really do want it, but I don't know if people are really willing to put forth the effort into doing those because again, they're stereotypical. This is what everyone wants, so I'm gonna do it because it's kind of what everyone else is doing. And I think the difference with kind of goals and resolutions is goals have a different connotation in that it's something that you want. Like, this is what you wanna do. I'm making a goal because I wanna do this thing. I like this thing. It's not what other people wanna do, but it's at least what I wanna do. So I feel like a lot of times when people make goals, they kind of stick with them longer because they actually care about these goals. They aren't just going to throw them away at the first sign of kind of pushback, but it's something that's like, hey, I want to get to a certain point. I want to be able to do this. So I need these goals to kind of push me to this point. And goals have really helped me a lot throughout my life. I've always been kind of a goal driven person. I really do like achieving, like setting and achieving goals. It wasn't until a couple years ago where I actually was like, you know what? I should probably like write down these goals and try to like actively kind of push for them. And so that's what I started doing. So instead of on New Year's or about the time of New Year's, I wouldn't make resolutions. I'd be like, these are my goals for the year. And I'd set the goals. And most of the time, I'd just like have it like in a notes tab on my phone, and I'd go back every now and then and look at it. This past year, I did something slightly different. I'll talk about that when we get to it. But I kind of wanted to split this topic into three kind of different parts. The first part I want to talk about is the goals I set last year for 2021 and how I feel like they went. The next goal, sorry, not the next goal, the next section I want to talk about is my new goals that I'm doing and the reasons why I chose them to do it. And then the last thing I want to talk about is this is going to be especially for people that don't really make a lot of goals or they don't feel like they're good at making goals or achieving goals. And I want to give some of the tips that have helped me make and kind of work towards those different goals. So the first section we're talking about is 2021 goals. So what were the goals that I had for this past year? And so I did put out on an Instagram story. If you don't follow our Instagram, it's at Not My Podcast, Our Podcast. And I put it out and I was just asking, what were some of the goals that you had for this past year and how do you feel like they went, type of thing. I also asked for what goals did you want to set in the future, but we'll talk about those when we get to that section. I had one person respond for those goals, and Miles responded, and he said he does his goals slightly different. So he doesn't do his like New Year's goals, like setting it for the year, but he does his goals from his birthday. And so he set on his birthday 2 goals for himself. The first goal he wanted to do was he wanted to learn Spanish. And so he's been doing Duolingo for a long time now. He said he's at the time he sent this message, his streak on Duolingo was 275 days. So almost 9 months or something like that. And his second goal, and I did know a lot about this because I was helping him with some of it at the start. He wanted to lose weight. And he said that he has lost about 50 pounds since he set that goal. So honestly, amazing for that time period. 50 pounds in 9 months is kind of an insane rate to be able to do it that consistently. I don't know how much, how quickly that happened, or if it's just been nice and gradual the entire time. But 50 pounds for anyone in that amount of time is insane. So congrats, Miles. I'm going to say both of those goals you did an excellent job on. But yeah, so those were Miles' 2021 goals. And so for me, my 2021 goals, I have 5 goals. And so I'm going to go through these 5 goals, kind of talk about why I made them at the time. And I'm also going to give them kind of a ranking out of 10. The way I rank my goals is it's not how successful the goals were, it's how much effort I put into them. Because some of these goals, it's kind of tough to be successful on. And it'll make more sense kind of when I talk about some of them. But I feel like if you're putting forth effort into a goal, whether you actually feel like you achieve that goal or not, it doesn't matter. You're at least trying it. Goals are kind of meant to put you on this path to move forward. And so I feel like if you're trying to put effort into it, that's the best that you can do. Don't worry about the results as much. If you're at least trying to do it, I feel at least that's okay. That's at least how I view it. So yeah, so we'll go through the goals. I'll give you how I feel about all of them. All right, goal number 1 I've talked about this almost like on half of the podcast now, so I'm not going to spend that much time on it, was to read 12 books this year. I am currently, I think I've read 13 now. I'm going to finish my 14th book. I'm going to finish the Harry Potter series by the end of this year, so I'll probably have read 14 books. The problem I have with this goal, so I gave this goal an 8 out of 10. Some of you might be thinking again, if you passed your goal, 10 out of 10, you did it, great job. The problem I have with this is I read a lot at the start of the year. I read about 3 books in a month and a half, maybe 2 months, which for me is an insane pace. I was reading a ton at that point. And then I didn't read for about 4 months after that. Eric talked about this on our reading podcast, where his goal that he really wanted to do was he wanted to fall back in love with reading. And I kind of really resonated with that because I was like, that's kind of, I guess, what I really wanted this entire time to do, is I wanted to fall back in love with reading. The problem is, if I really did fall back in love with reading, why did I take a 4-month break in between? Because I read those first 2 months, took a 4-month break, and then for the past basically 6 months, I've been really consistent. Like I'm going to read basically 12 books in 6 months from like July onward. But if I really did enjoy reading, I would have done it during those 4 months. And so I can't in good faith give myself a higher score on this because I that's kind of like a really big time to put forth no effort into this. So, yeah, 8 out of 10 for the reading goal. I do like reading, but maybe I just like reading because I like achieving goals. I really don't know the answer to that question. So, yeah, that was my first goal. Read 12 books, 8 out of 10. The second goal I had this year, and this might not make a lot of sense. So this might take a little bit of explaining for some people, is I wanted to sleep better. So I graduated in May of 2020. And if anyone doesn't remember what happened around that time, the entire world shut down during that point. And I kind of got thrust into adult life, if you want to call that, in a really weird point where I'm sitting here and I'm like, well, I don't have school anymore. I need to find a job, but no one's hiring. And then once people start hiring, they're going to hire all of the people that got laid off when everything happened because they have experience and I have none. And I basically kind of sat in like this kind of limbo for a really, really long time. And towards the end of last year, basically the entire second half of last year, I couldn't sleep. I would just go in bed and just lay awake for hours and hours and hours and hours, just not being able to sleep. Most nights I would probably get, my guess is I'd probably get about 3 hours of sleep. And yeah, for anyone that kind of has trouble sleeping, you know how kind of terrible that feeling is, where you wake up and you're tired and you're just tired throughout the whole day, so you feel terrible, and then you come home, you don't have any energy to do anything, you try to go to sleep, you can't, you barely get any sleep, and this cycle just repeats and repeats and repeats. And you just get kind of like stuck in your own head, and it's just such a terrible feeling. And so I really did wanted to sleep better this year. This goal I gave a 5 out of 10 to, because I kind of solved this goal, but not in the way. It was kind of a byproduct of me doing something else. For the first 4 months of this year, nothing changed. I tried doing a whole bunch of things. I tried cutting out caffeine. Didn't work. I tried only having caffeine at like the beginning of the day. Didn't work. I tried just a whole bunch of different things. Nothing really worked. Some stuff would work for a couple days. Other stuff just wouldn't work at all. And what really kind of made this goal successful was I started going back to school again. So I started going back to school during the summertime. So I took last summer, 2020, off because I just graduated, and then the fall and the spring semester, just looking for a job, just working. And I got to the point where I was like, you know what? I can't just wait around forever type of thing. Can't just wait around for a job. I don't want to be stuck in limbo anymore. So I decided, I was like, I'm going to go start taking classes, and if I can't find a job, I'm going to go apply for a master's program. I'm going to go do that. I ended up taking the first block of summer. So a block during the summer is 7 weeks, and they essentially condense an entire full semester course into 7 weeks. So you are jamming through this stuff. Essentially, you're going at twice the pace. So a normal college class is 3 credit hours. Essentially, if you're taking a summer block class, that 3 credit hour essentially becomes 6. And I took 3 classes in the first block of summer, which is essentially 18 credit hours for a 7-week period. And my schedule was insane during this period. I was probably pulling, with work and school and everything else, it's like 70-hour weeks, a little over 70. And so I was just go, go, go all the time. And I was able to sleep. I would come home, I'd be tired, I'd go into bed, and I would knock out. And I think the reason for that is my body sometimes works on a need basis where I have a tough time doing stuff sometimes unless I feel like I need to do it. And I think that got to the point where my body's like, you're doing so much, we need sleep. It's no longer you just want to sleep better, we just need sleep. So I am going to cut everything off because we need sleep so you can go do these insane weeks right now. And yeah, ever since that point, I felt great. Like, I've been sleeping pretty good off and on. I mean, I still don't sleep great all the time, but significantly better than before. So, yeah. I mean, so I tried some stuff for the first few months, and then once I kind of went back to school, I was just like, this is good enough type of thing. So, 5 out of 10 on this goal, just because it was successful, but it was successful because of something else. It wasn't me putting effort into this goal. It was me doing something else and this being a byproduct of this goal. So, yeah, that's goal number 2. All right. Goal number 3 I had was to get in better shape. And I did specify this is I wanted to be 225 with consistently working out. So, for anyone that doesn't know, I've told a decent amount of people, and some of you that are listening to this just knew me at that point. There was a point in my life where I was really big. I was, so this would have been early to mid 2017. So probably about April. I think it was a little before my birthday, April 2017. And I was 314 pounds. So I was really big, and that was at the point where I just decided that I was going to go to school. I was going to go to a university somewhere. I don't know if I had decided I was going to come out to UVU yet, but I was like, I need to get in better shape. I don't like how I am. I don't like how I look. I need to lose some weight. And so I started, essentially what I did was I was just like, I'm going to do light exercising. I literally just went for walks every night. And I'm going to cut out like half of the stuff I eat. Not half of the stuff I eat, but like half of what I eat. So eating less, working out, you lose weight. And so I basically did that for the rest of that year. So it was about a 9-month span. And I went from 314 to about 250. So I lost about 64 pounds. 65 pounds about in a 9-month span. A little after that, I hurt my back doing something, and I had to stop working out essentially and doing anything. So that was kind of where I sat now for the next couple of years. So I basically jumped around during this period between 240 to 250. I guess like 235 to 250 for the past 3 years up until the start of 2021. And I really just I was like, I still want to lose more weight. I still don't totally like how I look. So I was like, I want to start working out again. I want to start losing weight. This goal, I gave myself a 5 out of 10 for. And the reason I did this is the consistency factor again. I worked out decently for the first month and a half. And I ended up stopping. It's kind of like when some people do their resolutions. About that same point when people are like stopping their resolutions and losing weight, I was stopping this goal. And I stopped for a couple months. I started back up probably in May. And so from like May, June, and part of July, I was going consistently. And then I stopped again. And then I started going again in October. I think it was October. October, and then November. And then I've kind of fallen off the past couple weeks again. So it's been incredibly inconsistent. The reason I'm even giving this a 5 out of 10 is that during those times of where I was going, I was really consistent with it. I was really dedicated and really going and really trying hard to put forth effort into this goal. I just couldn't consistently do it. That I shouldn't say that. I chose not to consistently do it. I shouldn't say could. But yeah, that was my goal for getting in better shape. I don't feel like this goal was accomplished. Well, it wasn't accomplished. I am essentially the same weight and same build I was this time last year. So essentially nothing changed with it just because of the consistency. So I don't feel like I'm done with this goal. And we'll talk more about this when I talk about my new goals that I have. But yeah, 5 out of 10 for getting in better shape. Okay, goal number 4 was I wanted to lie less about dumb stuff. And eventually throughout the year I kind of changed this goal a bit where I did want to lie less about dumb stuff, but I also just wanted to be more open with people. So okay, let's explain this. I sometimes lie about unimportant things. That's a weird way of putting it, but I don't know a better way to put it. A lot of the times throughout my life, for things that really don't even matter, instead of just being open and saying like how I feel or essentially the truth about something, it's much easier to kind of come up with a small white lie to not have people press into the truth. And I kind of use this in different ways to kind of like hide different aspects of me from people. That's kind of a weird way and a bad way of saying this, but that's kind of what I did. And I got to the point, I've always wanted to change this, but I got to the point like at the end of last year where I was like, I really do want to change this. I don't want to keep lying about things that aren't important. I don't lie really ever about things that are important. I think that is incredibly terrible thing to do because like important things you shouldn't kind of lie about. That's like the reason. And most people have these things flipped in their heads where it's like, yeah, for the small things I'm just going to tell the truth because who cares? For the big things that actually are important, I might lie because whatever. But for me it's the exact opposite. It's like for the things that aren't important, that's fine to lie about. But for the things that are, you shouldn't because they actually are important. So, yeah, that was my goal for this year. But I eventually got to the point where I realized instead of just lying less about dumb stuff, I wasn't doing that. I actually did achieve that goal, but I just stopped talking about these things. And so it would never come up in conversations where I could lie. And I felt like that also was kind of not what I wanted. I didn't want to just, instead of just lying about myself and things, I was just not even talking about these things. And I already have a tough time being open and talking about myself. You guys might think that's wild. You're like, yo, you have your own podcast. You love talking about your stuff. But I really, really don't. I, especially for things that like are very personal to me and things like my feelings and stuff like that, I don't like talking about these things. It's very, very, very difficult for me to do. But I was like, I kind of need to because I was like, there's friends and family that I have that at different points like open up themselves to me. And I felt bad that they were willing to kind of put themselves out there and that I wasn't willing to do the same to them. And so yeah, I wanted to try and be more open with people, especially people that like I feel actually care about me and myself. Yeah, I gave this goal a 9 out of 10. This is the highest rated goal I gave myself this year. And again, if you know me, you might think I'm like lying about this. They're like, you're still really closed off. You still don't like talking about a lot of these things. But to me, it's like, if I've gone from sharing 1% of the things that I find personal and I care about to 5%, yeah, maybe it's only 5%, but that is a huge jump for me. And I feel super proud about that jump, about doing that. And I've put forth a lot of effort into getting better at this. So this one goal was very, very difficult for me, but I'm also very proud at how well I've done with this goal. Am I done? Like totally? Am I just like, yeah, just gonna stick here? Absolutely not. I still feel like there's a lot of room for me to improve with this, but I feel really proud of this goal, and I'm really happy that I decided to make this one of my goals this past year. All right, goal number 5 I had for 2021 was I wanted to give dating an honest effort. So, for anyone that doesn't know, I've never really given any effort into dating at all. Whether that's like middle school, high school, college, anytime, I really put forth no effort into any of this. I sometimes have a one track mind where I have one thing I want to do and I kind of hyper focus on that one thing. And like middle school and high school, that thing was baseball. That's mostly what I spent my time caring about at that point in my life. In college, and especially since I moved out here to UVU, the entire time I was in school, I was mostly worried about school. I wanted to go, I wanted to do well, I wanted to learn, and I wanted to graduate. I never put forth any of this effort into dating or going on dates or anything like that. So, yeah, it was kind of near the end of last year where I decided that I needed to do this. This is something I wanted to do and I wanted to actually put forth effort into. So, for the first, I'd say probably like 4 months of the year, I was not in a position to put forth effort into this goal. I January and February were a couple of really rough months for me, and I was not in a position to be like to do any of this. I was having a hard time keeping myself together during those months. And so there was really no effort that was put forth for the first couple months, really up until May, I'm going to say. May is when I really did start putting forth effort into dating. But again, just like some of my other goals, it kind of went in waves where May, June, July, I was trying, and then I just stopped for a few months and wasn't putting forth effort. And it wasn't until kind of, I'm going to mid October, end of October, so the last like 2 months, I'd say, where I did start putting forth effort again. So yeah, this goal I gave myself a 6 out of 10, where kind of for the same reason as like the working out thing, it's just I wasn't consistent with it. I don't feel like I put forth the consistent effort for this goal. But again, like when I was putting forth the effort, I feel like I really was putting forth effort into this. It wasn't consistent throughout the whole year. And that might be a little too harsh on myself because again, like part of this time I probably shouldn't have been putting forth effort into this goal. Like it wouldn't have been healthy for me again, especially at the very start of the year. Nothing good would have came from that if I did put forth effort during that time. So I might be being a little too harsh on myself for giving myself a 6 out of 10 only, but that's how I honestly feel for if I'm grading this entire year. So those were my 5 goals. If any of you were keeping total tally, overall for all 5 of my goals, I gave myself a 33 out of 50. So that comes out to be a 6.6 out of 10 on that rate scale. So slightly better than average. My ratings go from a 5 is like basic average. I'm not doing like a school rating where a 7's average. Mine's like a 5 is you put forth not the bare minimum effort, but kind of like the expected effort you would expect on a goal. So having a 6.6, I feel overall for those 5 goals pretty good. I am proud of these goals. I'm proud of the effort I put into them. Again, I wish I was more consistent with them, but I wasn't. So, yeah. Next segment we have is talking about new goals and goals moving forward from here. And so I also asked this question on the Instagram story, and I had 3 responses. The first one we had is Allison has a goal that she wants to write down one positive thing from work every day. Sam responded saying he wants to pay off his car this year. And Miles also responded and he said, essentially, now that he's lost the weight, now he wants to learn how to be healthy. Because losing weight and being healthy, while they go hand in hand, they're not totally the same thing. So, those were some of your guys' new goals that you guys have set for this year. And so I have 5 again that I set. And slight spoiler here, I decided not to wait this year until New Year's to set new goals. I looked at some of my goals that I currently had that we just talked about, and I realized kind of at the end of October, beginning of November, that some of these goals I didn't want to do anymore. Especially like the sleep better one. I was like, that goal I feel is good. We're checked. We can move on. And so I decided at that point, I was like, you know what? There's no real reason we need to wait until New Year's to set new goals. I was like, if I feel like I need to set a new goal now, let's just do it. And so I started these goals at the start of November. Some of them you're going to see some overlap on. They might be slight modifications of some of the older goals. But yeah, I just decided, I was like, you know what? I care more about these new 5 goals than I do about my old 5 goals. So there's no reason for me to keep doing with these things if I don't care as much about them. So the first goal I set this year is another reading goal. And again, biggest complaint I had about my last goal was that I didn't read consistently throughout the year. So that's exactly what my new goal is. My goal is I want to read consistently throughout the whole year. I don't want to set a number on this because I feel like again, I kind of want to phrase my goal kind of how Eric did of like falling in love with reading again. But I want to know kind of the effect of like, if I fall in love with reading, that means I will read consistently. And so that's why I'm setting that as my goal because it's an easier way for me to identify if I have fallen in love with reading again. I also didn't want to set a number because I might want to start reading longer books. One book series I want to read is the A Song of Ice and Fire books. So those are the books that are based for the TV show Game of Thrones. I am a big fan of Game of Thrones. We've talked about this. And I do want to read those eventually. Problem with those books is they are long books. And if I decide I want to read them this year, and I was like, let's say I set a goal of like, let's read 18 books this year. I probably won't be able to finish 18 books if I read those long books. But there's really no reason why a number of books should define if you like reading or not. If you're, again, for me, if I feel like I'm reading consistently throughout the year and I'm enjoying it, I probably like reading. So yeah, that is why I've set this goal. I feel like whenever I decide to make new goals, if I feel good about this goal, this will probably be the last reading goal that I set. This will be now the third time in a row that I've had a reading goal. And I feel like if I feel good about this goal, whenever I decide to make new ones, I'm good. I did it. Check. I'm going to check that off my list for good. Goal number 2 I have, I don't like the way this one's worded, but I haven't thought of a better way to word it yet. And that is, I want to pursue my ideas and inspirations. So what do I mean by that? I mean, I have a lot of these random ideas that have kind of always popped through my head of, "Oh, you should do this. Oh, you should do that, blah, blah, blah." I had an idea that I wanted to do a podcast years ago, and I just never did. I've had different ideas to do different things, and essentially I started asking myself, "Why don't I? Why don't I do a podcast?" When I wanted to get into photography, why don't I get into photography? And I wanna have those types of ideas that pop in my head, and I start asking, "Why don't I?" As long as I can. Like, there's some things I wanna do, but, like, some things cost a lot of money, some things cost a lot of time, and I don't have the time to be able to do that right now. But as long as I can ask the question, "Why don't I?" and there's no giant barriers to actually doing it, I wanna do it. I wanna push myself to be able to do these things. And, again, the podcast is one of them. Going out and buying my camera and doing photography is another one. And then whatever other stuff pops up into my mind this year, I wanna be able to follow these ideas and not just say, "Oh, well, maybe a different time," or, I don't wanna do it because, I don't know, it'd make me feel uncomfortable if I kinda push myself outside my comfort zone." I do wanna just go forward with those ideas. Maybe not stick with it forever. Maybe I might try something and realize I actually don't like this, and then I could just move on. But at least at that point, I would know. It's no longer of a, I wonder if I'd like this. It's now, I do like this because I tried it, or I don't like this because I tried it. Again, I don't really think my goal, pursue my ideas and inspirations, is exactly what I want, but at least gets close enough to what I want it to do. The wording for this goal for me might change over the year or over however long I want this, but the idea or the feeling that I want from it is gonna stay. All right, goal number 3 is I want to become comfortable and proud with my body. So, this is kind of an extension on my get in better shape goal that I've had for this past year, where I do wanna get in better shape. I really do. The problem that I think might happen is I might just be chasing after something that just will never happen, and maybe I might just never be happy with it. Maybe if I would've gotten down to 225 with working out, that's what I wanted this past year, but what if I was sitting here at that point now and I still wasn't happy, and I'm like, "I wanna keep pushing myself, and I wanna keep doing it," and I'm essentially like on a hamster wheel, just never being able to get to what I want, which essentially I'm breaking down to just to be happy with my body. I I don't want to say that like become comfortable and proud of my body is just me saying like I'm just going to be fine with how it is and just not put forth any effort. I don't want to do that. But I want to put forth the effort into getting in better shape and doing all of this, and also not restricting kind of this, like, happiness of that to some goal that might not be achievable or might just be too much, you know? Maybe at the end of this year, I'm still in the same spot where I'm, like, again, 235-ish, but if I can just be comfortable with that and be fine with it, I'd be happy. Maybe I, get really serious with working out consistently, and I do it consistently throughout the year, and maybe I get down to, like, 220, 215, and I feel comfortable and good with that. Or maybe it's a little bit of both. Maybe I lose a little bit of weight, but I'm also just more okay with it. Maybe that's how I achieve this goal. I don't know exactly how it's gonna go. I hope it's a little bit of both. I hope I just don't become complacent with where I'm at right now, but I don't wanna become fixated on a body image that just might not ever happen. So, we'll see. It's an interesting wording that I chose for this goal, but I chose it for a specific reason, so we'll see how this goal does moving forward. Alright, goal number 4 is I want to be a better friend and family member. Oh, this one's gonna be tough to talk about. I don't feel like I'm a great friend or family member a lot of the times. I have a tough time keeping up with my friends. I don't often like reach out to them or talk to them, seeing how they're doing. And same thing with family. It's like a lot of the times they will contact me and we'll talk for a bit and they'll reach out to me, but I feel like sometimes I don't put forth that effort back into reaching out to them if they don't reach out to me first. I've kind of felt this way for a really long time. Like even back in high school, where I saw my friends every single day, I was never the one to reach out to them and was like, "Hey, do you want to go hang out? Do you want to do this? Do you want to do that?" It was almost always them asking me, and so I don't think I'm the worst friend because whenever they would ask me if I could, I would. 'Cause I really like hanging out with my friends, I really like hanging out with my family and stuff like that, and so if people are like, "Hey, do you wanna go do this?" Yes, I definitely wanna go do that, but I'm just never the person to kind of reach out to my friends and put forth that same amount of effort into, and it's something I've been really, like, self-conscious of for a long time. It's something I've known I've been a bad friend for a long time, and I've always wanted to be better at it, and I'm putting it as one of my goals because I want to put forth effort into being a better friend and family member to everyone. Yeah, it's, this one's gonna be tough because yeah, it's gonna be tough for me to do, but I think it's worth it. I think it's worth putting forth this effort and kind of reciprocating this effort that all of my friends and family have put in to me. So we will also see how this goal does moving forward. All right. Goal number 5 for this next year. So this one's going to take a slight second to kind of understand why I have this goal this way. I don't like having a lot of goals. Some people might say, well, 5 is a lot of goals, but to me, 5 is a really good number to have because I feel like if you have more than 5 goals, it's tough to focus on those goals. Like some of them are just going to be forgotten about because there's just so many that you just might not be able to remember all of these things that you want to do. And so I feel like having 5 goals is a good number for me to be able to remember and actively be able to put forth effort into. So the problem I was having is when I was coming up with my ideas for goals for this time, I had more goals that I wanted than 5. But again, I knew that I wouldn't be able to focus on all of these if I just had all of them as goals. Like let's say if I had like 9 goals, I knew some of these weren't going to be I wasn't going to be able to put forth effort into them. And so at that point, really you got to come down to one of two things. Either you put off goals and you're just like, "You know what? This one isn't as important to me. I'm not going to put this on." Or you kind of find a common theme with some of your goals. And so that's what I decided to do because my 5th goal I want to be happy. A lot of the goals that I had were going along that same line of thinking. And it really is the thing that tied everything together. I really never realized until this year how I don't wanna say unhappy I was. This is how I assume most people would think, that the opposite of happy is, like, sad or mad or something like that. But to me, the opposite of happy is just nothing. It's just like a no feeling, just like complete emotionless isn't the right word for it, but I can't think of a better word. And it really took until this year for me to realize kind of how much of that emotionless place I was in, and it's been like that for a long time. And I don't I didn't like it there. I realized at that point, like, it's almost like you're sitting in a completely dark room and someone turns on the light, and then they turn back off the light, and you're like, "Wait, I like that. That light kind of helped out," type of thing, and that's how I kind of felt at one point this year. There's a period of this year where it's just like, "You know what? I feel happy," and then it got taken away again. I kind of didn't feel great for a while, and it really made me realize that, yeah, I've been living in kind of like that emotionless place for so long that I forgot what that feeling was like. So, yeah, I had a whole bunch of goals that kind of fell into that thing of like, this really is here to help me be happy. And like some of those goals are some of the goals I had last year. The dating goal, putting effort into dating, being more open with people, both of those goals are something I wanted to keep going with. And I realized both of those goals fall under this category of just trying to be happy. Yeah, that is my fifth goal. We'll see how it goes. Again, I give my goals a rating on effort. These are really kind of only effort-based goals. I don't think there's gonna be a point at the end of the year where I'm gonna be able to be like, "Be happy. Did that get achieved? Yes or no?" There's no real, like, check off for those goals type of thing. And I really like how I, worded these goals because it really pushes forth the, "You don't need to check off a goal. Put forth the effort into doing those things, and good things will come from it." That's at least what I believe. So, yeah, that is my fifth goal. Alright, last segment of the podcast is I wanna give some tips for people trying to make goals. This could be for people that already make a lot of goals or for people that have never made a goal. And so these are some of the things that have kind of helped me throughout the past couple years of me trying to make goals. The first thing I'd say is you need to find things that you're interested in and that you want to get better at. Don't feel like it can really be one or the other. I think you really need both of these things to have a good goal. Because if you're just interested in something, but you don't know what you can get better at with it, there's nothing to do type of thing. That's just something you're interested in. Or if it's something that you want to get better at, but you have no interest in, well, that kind of falls in with some of those like stereotypical resolutions where if you're not interested, you're not going to put forth the effort to continue doing it. So I think you need to find things that you are interested in and you want to get better at. The second thing is you have to learn and understand what motivates you and phrase your goals in a way that will keep you motivated. And I will give this tip for people that are new to goals. For me, at least, putting forth numbers into the goals really helps at the start, like when you're first starting to make goals. The first reading goal I ever set was for 2020, and I said, I want to read 6 books. That 6 really helped me to be able to push forth because there was at least a finish line. And I feel like if you're just starting off and making goals, having that finish line can really help because it'll help push you past that finish line and you can achieve those goals. I feel like once you kind of get better at making goals and you've done it for a longer period of time, I think the numbers kind of hinder it a little bit, which is why as I've gone on, my goals have less and less kind of numbers in it because I sometimes think that once you kind of are in the pattern of making goals and achieving goals, having that checklist kind of hinders your ability to push past just that checking off of the goal. The third tip I have is we just talked about this right now. Keep the number of goals small. It's hard to keep track of and focus on too many things. If that's just one goal, if you only want one goal and that's all you feel like you can focus on and put forth effort into, have one goal. If it's 3 goals, have 3 goals. But whatever it is, I think keeping the number smaller just helps you focus on it better. If you feel like you can focus on more things, go for more than 5 goals like I do. But I at least know for me and how I work, 5 is the max that I can do. And so keeping it small, it's also less intimidating if you keep the number of goals small. Sometimes if you write down like 20 things, you might be like, there's no way I can do these, and then just don't even try. If you have a small list of things, it's less intimidating to put forth the effort and actually try for them. And the last tip I have is if you feel that a goal is accomplished or that you just aren't interested in the goal anymore, stop, get rid of it. You don't have to wait to a certain period of time to kind of hop onto a new goal. If you feel that you're good with this goal or you just don't care anymore, there's no point. You're not going to put forth effort into this goal anyway. Get rid of it. If you want to replace it with a new goal, find a new goal. Find something that you are interested in, want to get better at, and replace it. That's something that I feel like I need to get better at too, because I waited until like the end of October to get rid of my sleeping goal, even though I was putting forth no effort to it for the previous like 6 months beforehand. It was just sitting there, just not doing anything. So yeah, I feel like that is something that I need to work on too. So that's a tip that I maybe need to take a little more to heart. But yeah, that is the podcast. I don't have anything else to say about goals. I hope you guys like this episode. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Again, the next episode will be out January 10th, not January 3rd. So, yeah, I hope you guys all have a good holiday break. Hopefully, you guys have fun with your families or friends or whoever you're hanging out with during that time. All right, see ya.